Chancho Bardo Dane Jabze Dage Chinzo Jebe Sonam Je Dola Benje Sanje Do Barasho Sanje Chedan Zoye Janam Chancho Bardo Dane Jabze Dage Chinzo Jebe Sonam Je Dola Benje Sanje Do Barasho Simchen Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Gyodan Dembaran Joje Simchen Tamje Dungal Dan Dungal Ji Gyodan Dawar Simchen Tamje Dungal Mebe Dewa Dan Mida Waran Joje Simchen Tamje Nirin Chadan Nidan Dave Dan Nyum La Ne Baran Joje Simchen Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Gyodan Dembaran Simchen Tamje Dungal Dan Dungal Ji Gyodan Dawaran Joje Simchen Tamje Dungal Mebe Dewa Dan Mida Waran Joje Simchen Tamje Nirin Chadan Nidan Dave Dan Nyum La Ne Baran Joje Simchen Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Gyodan Dembaran Joje Simchen Tamje Dungal Dan Dungal Ji Gyodan Dawaran Simchen Tamche Dungal Mebe Dewa Dan Mida Waran Joje Simchen Tamche Nirin Chadan Nidan Dan Nyum La Ne Baran Joje O Zajebe Yoje Me Ando Don Re Ro Lin Je Nye De Gen Bo Di San Ge Jin Do Me De Mu Ai Do Gun Nan Da Jin Da Je Bar Sho Yi Da Guru Re Na Me Da La Ga Ni An Da Ya Mi. In English. Elements take security in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the merit created in these practices, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for benefit to all sentient beings. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the merit created in these practices, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of sentient beings. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But merit created in these practices, state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sentient beings in their happiness and in causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering in causes. May all sentient beings never be separate from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings be abide in equanimity, free of pride and attachment and anger. May all sentient beings be in happiness and in causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and in causes. May all sentient beings never be separate from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings be available from what is. May all sentient beings be also causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and in causes. May all sentient beings never be separate from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings be Yes, colors, mommy, surrounded by the sun and God, we bless this with the pure and offering it, turning beings, even you, upon you, Narakania Dariami. Hello to
Thank you and good afternoon to you all.
all. 당연히 드링기디 subject of the 왕 견숨 왕식이 견숨来的 샤기 휴지들에 다 티고라 다땡을래 그스슈나 지단에 단다티 갑도 될라니 셰바데니 수첸다 만다베니 규겐 개발 컨디시 요레스 되는 다직 디워르 술라도 그도 디나신기 지단에 니 당한조 즉 수진기 최 탐제라야다 지규 규델라야는 규 마로 망보지 요르데 되나네 규겐 디 규규 렌치 제규제데 지교로 되나제 당가랑 좀 나로 지단에 단다 ngaranzo la samlo tawa ina chidane migi luden tahanaji sosososola samlo tawa ina chik gyuken mangpo shin gogorde tenane zo pama padamani zo re tenane ta chik tela yang tunge mangpo shi zom gogore de tenane ta tegi ene tende yowa de nga zo ken goya de kechenpo re esa samgedo tahanaji nge ta chik padamani ninangi nane nga zo tuikin dendo ngaranzo 서로 이날에 즉 아마데 같은 신보인 바다 지도 파마니까 같은 신보인 바다 다나 진기 마데는 같은 신보인 바다 지다는 아주 가균라야 즉 파마지 텔렌데 즉 미제 까와만 볼라니 즉파 잘도야 가보여레스 어딘 좀 데리고라 즉 두sem제 거야지 되오지를 잘하잖아.
So for today's topic, we have three conditions of a sense consciousness. And for the consciousness to kind of arise, it has to have different conditions or factors. And generally, when we talk about, cause and conditions, it can have its, different. It can have its different types or classifications, such as immediate cause, indirect cause, cooperative cause or conditions. And using that as a kind of foundation or understanding, we can apply this to any object or phenomena, such as using our own human base. This human body that we have arises from many different causes, conditions, factors, primarily, parents. And then with the two parents, it has also many other causes and conditions to kind of give rise to this human rebirth. And therefore, kind of, generally, parents are considered as a very grateful in one's life. And often there's a saying that parents gratitude to repay that gratitude, it would take many lifetimes. So sometimes it's helpful to kind of reflect on this, our own kind of human base.
원내에도 좀 지단에 당아서 되긴도 질 소소소소라 단다 강 요와디 아니 소소소소기 즉 자침부인 바다 소소라 즉강 요와디 즉 가와 즉 가리 야야 즉 되긴 야고 단다 좀 되버디 요와들라 아니 즉 가와 곰네 딜라 즉 시수이라 즉 최제하기 준비다 즉 저와 정보 컨디시 투베인바 딘데 투에지 고가브라와다 딘데 라인에 딘데 즉 대와다 즉 디기 딘데 중앙에 딘솔라 즉 갈라오르 가와 단시수이라 제거해야 돼 개침보래 다나진 게 간소 파말라도 좀 받한다 간소 세디 파마데라 진침부인 방간소 상마지 지단에 뇨게 줍대 요래 딜라인 딜렌 자고야 돼 만족이 직지단에 랭겐도래 지단 지 용기 차ning 간소 망보지 다른 파마 썸네니 책에 요래 레소레소양 직 겐다 직 겐도 틴직 덴데 맞아 왕한테 미벨라 통화 요래 다 간다 그냥 덴데 마인 바 간소 다기랑도 딜라 찾아와 있나 지단에 파마 제뉴게 요래 파마 지메 이나 가서 만화도 정말 라인에 파마 매네 마주와지도 말아 대인도 잠발랑 가서 파마 세디 파마데 같은 컨디지 임방한 저기 소소녀의 돈에 셰바나진 게 찔한 저기 단다 디나라 튀길던 가지고 디나 챤드나 딘데 집에 깝딜라 요래 다라지 만주 심전 탐제에서 만주 심전 탐제 ke lana mara ngo tende chewa de la ke wa chimbo dan tende yor de ina yang zu de ki tanda gi nga zu di che ama gi chumbe pe la de la tende nga zu gi tende pan cha ne samlo ta wa na so so tanda mara zu la pe wa da chi pagi simjen la ni che da chamba ki ya la pe chimbo yong ge sa re
Um, Generally, whatever things that we possess, including our own body, facilities, and the fact that we have access to Dharma teachings, it is helpful to kind of have a sense of appreciation and rejoice, for what you have and what you possess. And as said earlier, the gratitude of our parents is something that we can understand through our own experiences. And therefore, with that gratitude, there are many who intentionally, deliberately repay, their parents' gratitude. And and uh, and there are many who has actual experience of being a parent. And we all came through that experience. So, and we do this often in our prayer, mother like all sentient beings. And with that kind of the attitude, looking at other sentient beings, and just like how you would kind of treat to your parents, if you're able to have that perspective towards all other sentient beings, then it can make a great difference in terms of cultivating compassion, kindness towards others.
어디 지단이 견조 있다 견조 망쳐지다 견조 뒤견도 디나 단다디 나라에는 지 로종친 아래 된데기 남균지 뒤견도 된데 팬에 된데기 지 ken고레 되나다 그치 지 서와즈나레 디나라야 용게 된데라 팽게레 삼네 당에 주고 지단이 다디단 디 선배 직배당 된데 체네 다 지금 수살 전에 좀 먹어지 지단이 견조 ken고레 될 남과 된데도 지금 라삼로 당고야 돼 다 지역계 정보를 당아 레레레레 디디딘데지네 주목하지로
개점 몰래 가르쳐 몰라서.
지단인 것도 다 직섬 섬로 퍼팅 같은 포마 같은 정보를 요 띵네 쇼지데이터 얘는 다른 거지.
Um, and many of you are already familiar with those kind of concepts or understanding of, the importance or credit of one's parents and repaying kindness, and likewise kind of applying such same kind of treatments towards others. And therefore want to kind of remind this to all of you.
라서 어디지 온딘데 제슈슈엔 다딘 지단에 다딘마 단다 딩면라 롭센 디시자 전 도샤나 네
Yes.
단다 디간에 롭센 시자 도스나다 조조데 단다디 겐스 왕시기 겐숨 셰바제 셰바 데나네 수 수다 만다베 케바 카레 요레세 숭가 요데 잠발라 수다 만다베 수기 주기 최다 만다베 그겐 케바 컨디시 요레세 숭딩가 라인 겐 숨데 숭도 왕셰들라 아니 왕셰들라 겐 왕셰당 이세니라 아니 왕셰들라 아니 겐숨 이세들라 아니 겐 니다 숨 찌기여 봐 덴데시 여사레 덴데디는디 디기타 첨바디네마 덴데시 숨도
Going back to the text, if you have a book, it's on page 55, Three Conditions of a Sense Consciousness. And sense consciousness, unlike, as said at the beginning, unlike physical things, in order to have a sense consciousness, it has to have three conditions. Three conditions for sense consciousness, and for mental consciousness, it can have, two, three, or either one conditions to kind of, manifest or appear.
다 지단이 다 디간라 규단 겐세데 숨도 규단 겐세데 숨 규라나 컨디션랑 뭐지 그래 겐라나 컨디션라다 고도워즈나 규디 조 에네 지 가리나 지 개버체겐 조도 베나 만족이 말한 줄로 차원에 규디 조도 규 규기 조도 파마니게난 다 맞아서나 되고 마데 규조 텔라 켄데 텔라 트로체겐 다치 파다 파츠베 되게 지 가레나 망보시는 거라 되니 페이지 페이지
Um, and when talking about cause and conditions, to understand these terms, cause generally refers to something that produce something, um, and that produce something. And simple example would be cause for ourselves would be our parents, and within the parents, especially the mother. And then along with the primary cause, it can have several other kind of conditions as well.
어디지 지단이 오보 상말라니 오보 상말라 규다 겐요 요다 캡센 저 캡도 캡레 대난에 단다 지 균데 남자 케와로 타 케와라 토체 체바데 니 케 케와라 니 토체 바데 디 겐지 ngolane 딩가라 다나 순도 데체 데다나진 페센트 오지 디게 디나 요바나진 게 뉴구 케보 뉴구 이나다도 타카레 사벤지리 컨디치 타바이나 되게 데라니 유 아니 뉴구 데체 kushudawena kushuje the nedo than the nyugulana nedo uchevane ne koranche de line ken kare chu lu ken to cheba tabudi tanda digi diche odi ndirisha dana jinde gyudan ken ming tade zamado ani donchi yin sumbana jingi dana di chawore chidane
Generally speaking, all object or phenomena are considered as their respective cause and conditions. So whatever phenomena, things, object exist, it should have its own, causes and conditions. And in the book, it says, the definition.
kengi mo derish kande
This definition of a condition, that which is assists a cause in producing its results. And again, example would be, the cause of the apple would be its seed. Likewise, the cause of the barley would be its seeds, and then conditions refers to factor that contributes, or assist cause producing its results, such as water, fertilizer. All of those can refer to as conditions. And again, as said here, the general understanding is cause and conditions are mutually inclusive. It refers to basically the same thing or having the same meaning.
어디래 다나 중에 아주 메도드 답이 값이나 다 아주 단다 디간라 페디 추단 류데 개견라저 대만이 봐 될라양 지금 아주기 직 출루겐다 직 출루겐 나zo 용식이라 되죠 찾아야 이게 개낭로라 주도래
And within the conditions, we use an example of water, fertilizer, but it can also include, many other factors such as human, work in kind of watering, applying fertilizer. So within the conditions, there could be many other factors included as well.
딜라인 직 다도 제겐데 소에 다른 치루로 다디제 디인데서 마다 단다 딩알라 디는 쪼도디 단다기 왕시기 겐숨제 겐델라 예나 겐델라 여와이나 이니 규겐 미겐 다겐 테마다겐시 왕시기 딜라 참고하디 겐 디시디 차기로
And here we are primarily talking about the conditions of the sense consciousness. And in the book says, 4 types of conditions: causal condition, objective condition, dominant condition, and immediately preceding condition.
규겐제 규겐제 데zambal라 타 kanda kaya na te kia ki kyu tso do de tso do de la di cha hore ta tanda di la miken se de zambala mikpa chesa ki yul do de yul mi yul do yul mikpa chesa ki yul de che ene daken se de zambala dapu ken de tanda di ga zala wangshi koran wangshi che ene tema taken se de zambala ta chik wangshi ngachi kachi ngama da chima ni mutune diporula zammaja ne kebatela te kebatela kendela ene ka temata kenze ondeni jisungure tanda deni sungur tena jine ki taran diwadela ene chik kungdo nzo rangde ne sun tele chik gyuta ken shike ne tanden de sunsha de dipot gyuken temata ken meken tabu kende te chik shungdo de kungde
So these four conditions, beginning with the causal condition refers to the primary or the main cause, of whatever that it is producing. And objective condition refers to the object um, um, or object of the observation in that particular case. And uh, dominant condition refers to sense faculty. And immediately preceding condition refers to the, in this case of sense consciousness, the immediate prior moments of the consciousness, and then that prior moment of consciousness moving on to the next moment of consciousness. So that immediate course is the prior moment of consciousness, and these four conditions. We have quotation from Vasubandhu's text, A Treasury of Knowledge, auto commentary. It says in that sutra, four conditions: causal, immediately preceding condition, objective, and dominant condition.
어디서 다 되는 마다랑 살살살살 용어들이 왕시 유기 남된도 소 무수 계제데 왕시 우다 왕베시비기 미겐라나 간디시사고 라오잖아 왕시기 율 남된도 다 왕시기 율 아니 페나고보도 다 디왈라야 페샤네 디왈라 용기 그래데 소 샤로 체겐텔라 아니 율 쿠란 공부도 왕시라 샤로 체겐텔라 가르잖아 미겐체 아니 왕시 란데 남된도 소 다티 원시라 아니 차로 지금 데라 원시 란데 남전도 조롱어수 계제데 원시기 송된세도 잠발라 파기 조야기 율코란데 데페나 온보데 온데네 조시 송도 남전도 조롱어 남바 시 원시데 코란라 차로 지금데 데네 다는 원시기 미켄세나데 원시기니 송된 송된 다 지그레 파조기 온보도데 샤그레
And in the text, it further kind of explains and clarify these conditions at the end of page 55. Definition of the objective condition of a sense consciousness is that which directly and principally give rise to a sense consciousness bearing an image of an object. So the objective condition here is, if you use an example, the blue color. If our consciousness is looking at the blue color, the objective condition is blue color, making it kind of, says bearing image of the object. Bearing that image of the object to the consciousness is the objective condition. And also observed, it mentioned the definition of an observed object of a sense consciousness, that which directly and principally give rise to the sense consciousness bearing an image similar to itself. So again, if you use an example of the blue color is both the objective condition as well as the observed object.
어디체데 다디는 디셰 원시기 율 지니스 조롱어수 계제데 원시기 다켄기니 뭐 당어수 율 지니스는 파조데니 샤르바 체겐데 왕보셰바라 직 로라 직 차라기 또 체겐데 에네 왕시 코란데레세 제지도 디에니다 왕시기 오지 미월타 부르란데 미시기 투모 마임베 다켄다 이원 더블 란디 미시기 투모 마이비 란디 미시기 투모 마이비 다켄도 조스 다 소소소 투모 디나라다 투모 마이바 지 용기도 다 투모 마이바 제 삼바 코란기 첼레 투모 마이바 지 가자 수다 수이나 나랑도 상말라인 라랑기 직 제단 넘버 제단 당 레단 카디나 직 미세와지 소소지 개발된 바들 아니 투모 와세고라 가자니 쉬어대 쉬사량디 딘디시 냠도 쉬샤나
And dominant condition, the definition of a dominant condition of a sense consciousness is that which directly and principally and give rise to a sense consciousness able to apprehend its object. So what does dominant condition does is, as said here, apprehend its object. So apprehension is done by the dominant condition. And here in the text we find uncommon, uncommon kind of function. The eye sense faculty is posited as an uncommon dominant condition for the of the eye consciousness. That is its effect. So uncommon meaning, just like in general sense, unique, and here eye sense faculty does its unique kind of or uncommon dominant condition for the eye consciousness. Although we talked about this earlier, common and uncommon.
단다 디나제 미왕 타불트나 란디 미시기 투모 마인 바체데 잡발라 다 단다 그런 왕복nga 코나라 삼라다 와이나 왕복nga 이 소소소소기니 젤레 만다와 유디 삼발라 데 왕복 셴바다 만다웨 투모 마인 바데 에니 미왕데라 에니 직 코란기니 직 통토야다 덴디기 직 살디 단다디 투모 마인 바케제데 온데네자 덴디질라 삼라다나 디기도 단다디 가소
So when we're talking about uncommon dominant in relating to five sense consciousness, within the five sense consciousness, one is eye consciousness, and here uncommon in eye sense faculty, unlike other sense faculty, eye sense faculty has its unique or uncommon function, able to make or able to make seeing or able to see. That is uniquely done by eye sense faculty and not other sense faculty.
다른 직발에 미게 왕보 나요 왕보 제 왕보 리게 왕보 이게 왕보 데 상마기 다직 천이도 되라 다른 랑랑게 투모마인베니 다긴 애니 직 미왕다 나왕다 제왕다 류왕다 이왕세데 덴데레레 지네디나 티다네 다직 와라양 직진스 요르데 다른 덴데진 되긴 동안 다른 디찬네 덴데진 데 길렌도 순데바 덴데시레
And this applies equally to remaining four, sensory or sense consciousness. Eye sense faculty is an uncommon dominant condition for eye consciousness, and likewise, ear sense faculty is an uncommon dominant for, ear consciousness, able to kind of make it hear, and likewise nose sense faculty, tongue sense faculty, physical sense faculty. So you can apply this to the remaining four as we usually kind of does and apply.
오디제 다디네마 단다디 다란디가 와텔라 디 원시기 설디기 뭐 조르무스 케제데 원시기 테마타킹기 tsani ngo shikdo ta sardi zedi sambala chik ya sal rik zedi zuma salpo thongwa chik chiwa doji thongwa de chegende karzina tema takin ti je ti chiga chigodo odi che te dana jing din ma pangjen ta re ki chenji do chigodo mi ki namshi tabula chuna te 미켄라 수기 계제 미다 미키 가르지게 수 다디 치바래 다 미기 남시게니 미켄데라 아니 수 나이 남시 나이나 나시나 티다 아니 다치 제시나 로 아니 나시게는 다 어디서 쳐서 다 림바 다란 치치야데 근데 전에 다른 전에 슈무고 디지털 로셔나 로 말로나 되게도 디나마도 또 슈샤나.
And then the third of the condition, immediately preceding condition. Immediately preceding condition of a sense consciousness is that which directly and principally gives rise to a sense consciousness that is clear and cognizing in nature. So the nature of this clarity and cognition is the function of this immediately preceding condition, and that condition does brings or makes clarity and cognition in the process or in the functioning of sense consciousness when in apprehension of its object. And then next we find illustrations of these three conditions, and beginning with the eye consciousness. For the eye consciousness, the objective condition is the visible form, or simply form is the objective condition. And likewise, you can kind of apply to the remaining four. For the nose, smell; for the ear, sound; and each has its own respective objective conditions, or you can say the objects of the apprehension.
오늘의 단다팅 테스트 컬도고도 레레레레 슈샤도 근데 wal마다 다른디 단다디 그서 단다디 미시기나 미게 남실다 불러 첨바네 겐숨 요레시기도 미 겐숨 요로 미켄 다켄 테마 다켄 다나진기 원보 숨갈라 미켄 다켄 테마 다켄 요바디 단다디 프레그랍 디게나니 서오레샤디나 다른 단다 미시기 첨바 되게 다나지 정말 다른 디레샤 민딜라 미시기야 서오지 주고에서 재민도.
So in this paragraph, basically, illustrations of the three conditions for one particular consciousness, that is, eye consciousness. And so eye consciousness, objective condition is a visible form. Dominant condition is the eye sense faculty. And immediately preceding condition is the prior moment of consciousness attending to a visible form. And likewise, you can apply this to the remaining four, sense consciousness. And what you have here, as Geshe is saying, is clear enough and probably doesn't need further explanations.
다 지단이 단다디 콜라 딩게니 드로로 kinso 단다디 콜라 테스 원셰다 디 콜라 테스 잉이기그라. 양딘 디 콜라 양테 직 디와드 갑도 라양 직 텐데 요에네 요나 디기도.
So since we have studied this text earlier, you might already know or familiar with this. If you have any questions, Geshe said, you can ask directly.
When it comes to the immediately preceding consciousness, in the case where a person is sitting in a quiet room and then there's a sudden sound, in one moment of consciousness, the ear consciousness is aware of silence, but in the next moment there's the sound. So how does the awareness of silence, how is that an immediate cause of the awareness of the sound? Or it's different from it.
그건 저어들 전에 대마다 있겠는데. 대마다 이다 거란 빼든데 저도 대마다 있겠는데 빼시나 미지 그 강바지나를 코심진 대회나 아니 ene shugul ke rosh kosuna ene ke kwedi kala wala ko kusim de jura ke kwedi kusim de la ene ke kora ke ko de ene temata ke ndi karsa tadi kandis pot gore lo
디단 더 미스기 디미도로. 디마레 단다 디가서 단다 테마타켄스 데zambal라 단다 원시지 미켄 타켄 테마타켄스 디 쿠란기 리바도데 단다 디조 단다 디 원시기 켄숨 디 테마타켄 데양 주쟁기 디솔라 미스기 테마타켄 디 타란디 요마라 데samara 페체 타칸타켄 단다 디디 켄숨라이데 원시기 키림기 리바도데 딘디젤라 주고레스 단다 디디 데스 만도도 오시레도 대양 다직 셰방아마다 치마니 직 규마체바 파르마체바 제네 델겐젤라 데 만델로 이네 되기 때문에 다겐도 오지 차고 말아.
So you're saying, or what you are saying is different from what is explained in this context. Here we are talking particularly about sense consciousness and how it arises through its own kind of processes. So within the processes, we have these three conditions. And so how sense consciousness arises. So in the process of sense consciousness arises, there should be sort of a continuation of the moment of consciousness. And if in the absence of continuation of consciousness, sense consciousness cannot arise. So there is a prior immediate, consciousness. And that is what is referred here, immediately preceding consciousness. And what you are saying is little different from, what was being explained in here.
Matakin the moment Shamba that or the Christian to Mebayana Taran Tanda Dini, Chick Tanda Dizu, why you shown the Didora, that the Captain Do. The Pachukitabe, Tensity, the Misiki. Did the law missing Malona take it raw?
Yes.
Tanda di dinga la tsama namde ki shungde ki dagen o wang dagen wangbo da migen sungden nga ze de kar lapshat
La.
migen sungden nga ze de injina la takang tar kyan di jia nga de yul nga da wote jia da wote suta tiru richa onde tema takin icha ngama nam chonen tibu 마시 개발처럼 송송소 스탠다디 디게 니스만남데 슌테 단티 디소 디카센티 텐디시레샤
미케서 손데
다른 레비데
And after that, in the text, you find, we won't do the reading, quotation from the source text. One is on page 56. Dharmakirti's drop of reasons. There's a long quote, and then there's also a quote from Exposition of Valid Cognition. It's talking about, sense, faculty, object, and awareness. Basically, three conditions of the sense consciousness.
어디체 다 되는 마테 원시기 켄숨 소스 라제스 투모마이 바이 미스타디 미켄기 라제스 레 라제레 나게 샤바데 유케 남텐도 케바다 다긴게 라제스 치타디 소소소소 모토 마토 디 미스키티 민토 타티 티기토 타티 셴모 몽보티 마초시라
Dilaure.
마제나디 말라나 티기토티 Ati tini mata tanda tini maya di poru tela chitani tanda di chi tuta dodi lu che chitan chi lu do jire samsambe lu la yang samsambe lu de dodu chi tinga ne yongu do de samsambe lu la yang chi ngombo da ngonzi mishi zindan dan tindri yang kebar yore de chi de shumo wa chi chitan kanda kyan samsamba che de zamba samsamba yu kuran ge ngone chasang ani chi chedo par chilo ma do ba chi na sem ge ngone pa do ba chi de chi shegore dana jingi tingala ne loben cholang mitale sumbate na gente ene tendeji jugore ze chikchuna
And the explanations about these, sense consciousness in three conditions, what is being explained is generally from the point of view of Sutra school, or what we consider as a general kind of interpretation. But then there is a different interpretation by different schools, such as in the text we find at the end of page 58, interpretation by the mind-only school. Mind-only school's interpretation, because mind-only schools asserts that there is no external phenomena. So it is rather a projection of the mind. So there's no, the objective condition. And therefore we have, again, to kind of clarify or to present mindfulness quotes, we have a quote from Dekyong's Investigation of the Object text.
어디체 드네 다단다 지단에 게 다가 가산 디네마 어떻게 단다 디체 셔로 가산 롭센 딘디 디나라 딘디 초진에 따바네 베 슈고 망보도 오지 딘디 차도도 되는 쳔바 때 칸다르냐 롭센 따직사 벤바니마 다란 디나라 에네 칸다르냐 도도도 오지나 간디지기 디직 제토에는 딘디치네 도도도 오시야기 탑시 시야기 상로도 딘디치 타인 칸다르 어딘디 지단에 딩네 춘조 조사데 양직 레레레레 전에 된데 직 로기 양 된데 슈데나 양따다 뒤저데 시우티 차로사레 삼성도 된데 계속 세슈나
Yes. So about the layout of our kind of, a topic for each classes, Krishna was saying, under some kind of classes, topic, there are many pages. And so he's trying to present you kind of, sort of synopsis or the summary of the section, and trying to do that instead of kind of reading each and every part. And because you have already studied this topic earlier, so and going through each paragraph sentence reading might be time consuming.
어디체 딘 다단다 디간라 단다디 켄숨 긴남자데 롭좀 도사와레데 다단다 디와들라 디단 델네 카레용구두세나 간주 겨왕아치디 지금도 겨왕아치디 도도도 디난라 겨왕아치단 되어요버데 켄숨 긴남자 테마타겐 테타 다다 서리기 차디 다다 신디 지nen디 용도 치미 겨war라 소버리 지니 지규데 용아 당아준 남치지 그자데 시행도 zam발라 남치 니치 토마메바니 토마메바다 타마메바즈데 시행 zam바데 디단 델네 타이니 겨 먼저 겨왕아치 데 용아게 림바도 오지 덴디지 디나라 순고도 디네망 도도도 쉬야기 탑시도 제고서 직슈나 지단에 간도 다직 겨왕아치 켈렘바 나타 나비슈니 겨왕아치 켈렘고레 테 켈렘바데 안타 직 리과단 롱 다나 징게네 직 데데데는 계산라 직 직다 테마 직 네마기 겨왕아마기 에네 직 리포터 직 그제시는 용알라 소바다 데데 직 망부지 용고레 다 데데기 다 지단에 간도 겨왕아마 치마 요와 켈렘겐 샤다로
And related to the three conditions, then text kind of takes to the past and future life or rebirth concept. And especially within the three conditions immediately preceding, condition, the awareness or consciousness. Because of that, takes to the rebirth or the proof of past and future lives. And in the Buddhism, rebirth is considered as the consciousness is considered as a having, no beginning as well as no kind of ending. And being a Buddhist, it is, the Buddhists already kind of accept and accepts this concept of rebirth. And the assertion is done through based on many reasonings, logic, as well as citations of the text. And nowadays also through different kind of evidence, including remembrance or memory from the past. So there are many different ways to kind of, sort of to prove or but as a Buddhist, it is something that is considered as already kind of part of the belief or concept.
어디지 지단에 두지기 최간단한 넬라 슈서 연구 때 답교도 저러디 림바딜라 다른 두지기 최 컨디션 인바이나 유 그냥 넬렌다 렌지 체킨 니레 고바스 순디나 순고레 다나 징기타 랑기 탈티기 남시야 유메 바다 미팀비규 렌 중앙 멤버 팀비게 따지기 유메 바다 미팀비규 얘네 직 유질은 중앙 순고레 답변 즉 유 미팀바제도 잠발라 즉 미팀바다 아니 즉유 매바라 중국 말에 미팀비 줄렌 중국 말에 소원하진 게다 즉 팀비규 팀비규들라야 유 규대고 ngô kebar cheba de nyelen ta ngô keche miya nyelen te da lenji cheken de la lenji cheken ta tanda de la nyelen ta lenji cheken de sungu do je gi chwe de la ta nyelen la de to kebar cheya de la shugore ni lenji cheken na de da chungbe yang chik kare na chik jawa yugen de samala ni lenji chebe ken de chawra de chi shuna.
Generally in Buddhism, what we call composite phenomena, whatever composite phenomena exists there arises from its own respective immediate and or substantial and cooperative factors or conditions. And when we use that understanding or apply that to our own consciousness, as said in the text, the consciousness currently that you have does not arises from causeless or no cause. It does not arises from discordant cause or unsuitable or incompatible causes. And therefore, consciousness that you possess right now must arises from concordant cause or suitable or compatible causes. And for that compatible causes, there is, it's kind of characterized into two: substantial or immediate cause and cooperative conditions. The substantial cause refers to the cause that produces the very consciousness itself. And then the cooperative conditions refers to that assist in producing such real or, the actual nature of the consciousness.
어디지 다 디기에네 다 지기요 다 지겨 디요베 captain 자 지다 겨 치마 여바스를 좀 발랐다 딩에는 아주 조사로 왔다 디 남시기 규델라 남시마도 남시마인 바지기 애니 규치기 말에 대단 텔네 겨 치마 여바디 투병거로 디인도 정말 디게 어디지 투병거로 다 디나라인데 단다 디간라 파발레 시가베 지지 당에도 다나 진기 테만남데게 된 디간라인에 테만남데기 파발레 시가베 디 컨센티브 치기 치 도메견에 나멜라세 어디 직제 되네 다나 진기 테만남데레네 남시미베 남시기 녀레미 남시 마인 간지기 남시기 유다 켄터라서 바치기 말 남시기 유다 켄이나 아니 남시 남시 비캡세 캡자와데 디기 다 도도디 디숨고 어디 지슈네 다딘 어디기 다디기 림바다 어디 드림비자 자는데
We talked this earlier, in general kind of sense, the cause of the consciousness must be of its same nature, meaning a consciousness. The cause of the consciousness must be of the same entity consciousness. And something that is not nature or entity of consciousness cannot produce consciousness. And so that's a general understanding. And that general concept actually is a one way of proving, rebirth. And then, in addition to that, we have in our text several quotations from the text on page 61. There's one by Arya Deva, 400 stanzas, saying that in the case of any effect, our first cause is not perceivable. Then also exposition of valid cognition says it can also be proved because what is not consciousness is not the substantial cause of consciousness. So something that is non-consciousness cannot produce consciousness, and the substantial cause within the substantial and cooperative cause, substantial cause must be of the same nature, of the same entity.
어디서 되네 지단 단다 디기 드링기 첨바데 디지 지단에 단다 가서 나랑도 나바지 지르트 망고 출루 가 망고 셴바이나 다 겨왕같이 킬랭겐도 망고 통기도 다 지단 망고 출루 셴바이나 겨왕같이 킬랭바 통기도 데 단다 가서 나베 쇼니 셴바이나 근데 직 롱다 리파다 근데기 숭고르데 데마인 바양 직 데데 케말랭겐질라양 직 겨왕같이 요하다 데데기 대세 자단도 양 근데 다 견저 로라양 근데 여바이는 같이 되어til량은 근데 직선소다 근데 여바이는 실제나야고도 송나야고도
The concept of rebirth or past and future lives exist in many other religious traditions as well. what we are seeing in this text is a very Buddhist way of presenting and presenting past and future lives by using like the traditional way, scriptural quotations as well as logic. And when we are using this quotation and logic, we are kind of applying these to you know people who kind of maybe has a tendency to believe in such concept. But Geshe was saying, if you have any ways of if you have any means or logic or reasonings to kind of especially present it to non-believers, he was saying that would be helpful. helpful.
Yeah. Oh, DJ, didn't that such a person, Jenna?
Just a quick
Yeah, yes.
Far away from it. Why is the sense faculty known as the uncommon dominant? That doesn't make sense to me.
왕시의 투모만 배다 가진 데서
Oh,
그거랑 도움도 써.
Tatanda kola dila tar wanshi nga yora mige ombo ne ombo che ombo ta susu la mige ombo ina mige misiki timo mai ba korangi chik lonji mi thona na tende so bola chi lega che gore ta na gi che ombo do chajawa ne che gi ne ro nyoa la so ba di gi ne timo mai be lega che ma de chi gi nyonja ta bo wanshi gi di che tu 지기 말어 왔다. 지기 말다 간다기 때문에 어디기 닦고 제식이 다시 원부 셴발래 드모 모임 바디 콜라 여자니 때 덴딜라고 그래서 직전에 되고 인데고
Uncommon here, uncommon or unique, in a sense that when you compare that to the within five sense faculty, for example, as we were saying earlier, eye sense faculty does the function of seeing, and tongue does the taste. However, this function is unique to that sense faculty. The tongue doesn't does the seeing, eye doesn't does the kind of tasting. So therefore, in that way, uncommon or unique sense faculty because of its own function.
다나 진이 nga랑 좀 남겐 미스 소소소라이나 직 투모마인 바기 직 스킬도 오즈나레 딘데도 요로 다직 그 셴발레 메와 데나네야 직 타와 소노다네 셴라 메와 소소소라야 직 투모마인 바지 카레나 기지도 요레다 다 덴젤라야 어딘데도 슈나디고 원딘데도 지 총거다
Sense.
yeah.
Okay.
And another example, because you were saying, within the individual, each individual, when we go more kind of deeper, each individual has, its own unique skill, which is uncommon to other people. And so you can have that sense as well, individual, unique or uncommon kind of sense or maybe skills.
I have a question,
Mm.
and it's something I struggle with. When you talk, and I'm looking at specifically that it applies generally too, but in the middle of page 57, when it gives an example of the arising of an eye consciousness apprehending blue, requires the causal connection that includes the objective condition, blue, the dominant condition, etc. What I struggle with is the eye doesn't know that blue is blue.
Mhm.
It's only your mental consciousness immediately after that identifies it as blue. So what is the eye consciousness really seeing?
단다디 슈구 비유들은 슈구 니자로 들으셔.
네.
원시 계속해서 락테 투모만 베시시가 미경이 라지라 나기 셰바테 유기 남된데 기에바 전디동 된다. 원앙 원시도 유응원배 남바친데 기에바네 조 미경원배 제르라로. 대대로 거나 뭐나 붙은다 거야 가래 둘서. 원앙 원시도 유응 남된데 기에바 제다
네.
이 제디 통해디 이시기 하고 그러면 왕시 호랑 시험 거 말어서. 근데 좀 이시기 지금 뭐 왕시 가르치고 그러려고.
다 지단이 단다 티와딜라 지단이 단다 디나라야 dinde kilenganda tanda di dodeblu shishado ujire chado jidani dinde che maje zede jidani tobadan dinde yongorde tanda di kapsudila to jidani pagila ta ngombo de re ngombo re mare zede ishiki chegore zegora ishiki chegore zegora law songwe
That's all.
ina chitani dida ishiki charugo de di pacho de ngombo de chitani ngombo yimba ngombo sheba ge ni maripa na de mathon wala ini ta chi ishela da ro de te yong mi do di gi nyong tse shugula ini ishela pa di lendo de legi sara de to tangbo ti sila
So firstly, what is being presented here is, as we were saying earlier, Sutra school's interpretation. It could have any other interpretation, but in the example that he used, blue color, mind seeing it, mind knowing it. In order to mind to know that, it has to have first information of that blue object out there. That information, the grasping or apprehension, is done by the eye consciousness. And after that, then mind has the knowledge or information of seeing the blue as a blue. So
지단에 빼도 이제 단단한 남편이 가서 파조디 율데 ngombo 임바이나 가서 ngom보기 디데 간저기 미기 왕보디 그 리지드 간라니 방 ngom보도 차도다 지디레도 빼샤도 다나지 마르포질라다 바이나 파조 율데 던데 마르포 임바이나 되게 마오들라 때는 가서 왕보 셰바디기 디 미기 리부데 마오도 차왕 저기 지단에 빠르라 통도 되 지단 남편이 가서기 따두고도 온들리도 담보 디 마리 발라 December lo nibo de pichi sergi samara.
So when the eye consciousness is looking at the blue color, the first kind of step in the process is that blueness has to sort of captured by the eye consciousness. So because you were saying in their understanding, you were saying that the blueness appears in the eye consciousness, or the redness appears to the eye consciousness. With that information, then the next second would be the mental consciousness. And without that kind of apprehension of the blue as a blue and red as a red, mind doesn't know, don't have information of knowing blue color there. So therefore, what you are saying, mental understanding, is the second step. Prior to that, sense consciousness has to kind of capture the image or apprehend the image.
What confuses me is the nature of the image being captured. The objective condition really isn't blue, because blue as such isn't.
Objective condition, trying to clarify your question, objective condition to eye sense consciousness or mental consciousness? Moranda another mikin la di migi wangbola goe di tunda tongmindusa. 미기 왕보라 미기에 통해 줘라 공부 배셔야지 되게 고통 민도서 가르친 고고요메데 더 배동 공부 샤서
나 디나 다른 디샤테 디스코 미티치
you can get that.
예 가르쳤어
Your question for you want further?
question
Again, what I struggle with is, in the example I mentioned that includes the objective condition blue. The blue can't really be an objective condition of sense consciousness in my mind, because blue isn't defined until the mental consciousness immediately thereafter kicked in.
And the morang to this wombo la jora wombo hakwe jora di hakwe de semge nyene lero mashiji wangshe koranche boda de ngombo ngombe ba hakumaro alot yen zamata de yishe de nyen lego re lego
디다 지단이 디다 영사 말이 지단 당고 파긴다 ngombo ma deina ngombo mebala ni ngombo 통세 라고라 아 길로 디기래 어디 디디
So he was saying there couldn't be valid. So he was saying without knowing blue, then you should have an understanding of what blue is.
지단이 왕시 넬디 왕시기 다디데 상고다다 다에다 요요데 이나 서로 또발라 ngom보데 토네 ngom보 마통하지라 ngom보디 사무다요 말아 젤레제데
So he was saying once, how do you know blue color without seeing the blue color?
Yes, you're seeing something, your sense consciousness doesn't define. You're seeing something that is later than the next moment later is identified by your mental consciousness. Is that correct? So you're seeing something that initially,
You're seeing something that you know if you don't know what.
yeah,
You know blue color is blue. That otherwise,
Doesn't know it's
Mm.
blue though, but they still see blue.
if it
They
doesn't.
haven't posited
Okay.
they haven't posited information, a
So
label to it, but
how
infant can
do
still see
how
blue.
do that infant know that he or she is seeing a blue?
Doesn't know
Doesn't
until
know, right?
until you label it, but
So
they
what
are still seeing a difference between red and blue, like
as a red and blue or different color?
well, an infant, when they're looking at two colors, they will know that they're different, but they won't necessarily have a word for
Yeah.
for the color.
No.
Before we go forward, so the rods and cones in our eyes are literally photovoltaic cells, like solar panels.
right, that I know.
So a wave hits that, and then a signal generated by that wave travels through the neural structure of our.
I understand the process.
So
다단다디
What
프로젝트
we're
NCL라
seeing,
디도
though, is
저도
just
덴데도
wave.
덴데 영화에는 야고도 지단에 가르 같이 덴데 영화에는 또봐야마 세도래 디 야고도
We were saying it's good discussions. We'll have that continue after the break.
뭘 그래
Well,
Just the overthink.
야 this that 저 가지면서 직단다 디네마 직 랜더 라바이나 라바레 마라바이나 양주 티와단 딜라파비 직야 심바케 덴데킹 가서 이 또고도나 직 심마시와인 덴데나 카레나 직야 세도고레 원데기다 디 제발 직 야고용 그래서
so you're saying it's helpful, productive, and you ask question, and if there's an answer that he has, then he could probably. If not, he has to rethink us again, and then we'll discuss again. And so through this kind of process, then we are learning. You don't want to wait for the break?
Just want to add on to what Doug said, because when he asked his question, I went to the interdependent nature of everything. So he had silence and then he went to noise, but without silence being the precursor field, you wouldn't have heard noise. So in a way, to me, it was, but how we're learning it is very defined, right? But I see it as just an interdependent nature. I'm totally wrong.
디다 지단이 지르파나 단다디니 봄자바 디다니 직다파기 타고와디도 저요레 타고디 직 봄자바데라 직 다디 콜라이니 직 네바이나 네비켄 차도레 다디 코네니 직 펜바이나 펜비켄 차고레 겐 차고레 디다레 디다라레 다라레 사진이 코디안 직 디든 대화민도서는 셔버지 코스마이스
then correlation, Chris relation, 여기 춘주기 전원 공부 통하라. 전에 통하면 이제 공부를 해야 돼. 컨트롤 보고 돼요 말해서 하고 말해서. 지금 다고 저는 마음도 공부지 통하듯이나 보고 춘주디 군이 가가 뭐 하고 그래서. 얘네 가가 임바데 공부도 마음도 임바데 다들 슈네 제일 다시 슈네 명다교도 이게 하고 말해서. 얘네 그거를 개발체신 그래서. 근데 다고 간다 이게 이 시기 지레딩이
denzo chama chigbarata chidane tangbo pugu chunchung imbayina risu ngaranzu imbayina re do re ta chik this chik di ngombo re di ma yo ma che de zambala chir ngombo de ngombo kan la ngombo re ma o re ti da ne tai na sheba gi pagi ngombo ri go re ma che ma po ri go re de ina ya ta di chamba di da di nga la di ngombo re ze de ma cha nga la di yang la bya ka wo in sara ka bo re ti da ne ra jing gi de ro
Yes.
di chik chen di re ta ran ko ma sheba sigiri sheba sigiri ta ti da ne de ne xiang sam lo ta ina.
So what Barbara you said, Kikisha was saying, that is right. Again, in doing meditation, when you hear sound, then there's an impact, there's an effect, and then back and forth. So that is right. And Chris, what you said earlier, infant seeing, color and differences, and he was saying it's not only to infant, but to anybody. It can, unless you learn a sort of the label or designation. Prior to that, you don't know.
Yeah.
You can make the differences, but you don't know blue as blue and red.
Di re ta ran.
Yeah. But you can see the difference.
It's that
Dear.
discerning mental factor
Mm.
that sees between blue
This
The di chidanda de re de tanda di lor da wala di lapsi mara. Di mare.
And so, generally that is correct. It's one of the mental factor that does the discernment, or But right now, we are talking about just the sense-based conscious condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, yeah. So just chapter. Yeah. More question.
Yes. I'm not understanding the immediately preceding condition. Is that does the immediately preceding condition precede the sense faculty apprehending the object, or is it after when this, or is it in between the mental consciousness and the sense?
When the Gidish Temada again, Gochama Sonsa, the Temada again, the Yonda, and the Shadan, and the Shah or Katusha go a do. Beshashin, the color that Jalaj Tebarishina, the New shall go to jail, shall go Temada again, like the Gochama Sonsa.
The Corona country test to Temata Hinge.
Did Tavan, she depended on do.
Matakin.
She needs up ship.
Needs up she get the water. The Rechitane Tamatakin Shiva Namachi. She hint Sumbu.
Temada again, the Sugi, the Chebe Shebangamatabo.
Yes.
The Chihuahua, Namshin Tadi.
So tanda di na la di kongi ngimi do sela ra chidane ta temata hin la somata pe kharisha gorta temata ta di su yila cheba je zama tingel ta su tho ta rang ge ni di lemsan ta te de roji da te gora tanda pagi tanda ken tanda di na la chipare pagi ken de la ken chi gyuni te boru la sheba de zamma jaba ani pa mutuni roganjila dine ko guda tanda di to de la ken sume kaptu de la
No, because of the construction.
chidan tanda di khorangi chani de ga ta chik salwar ta chik shar chugan de lo de pa chegu do
No.
되게 깬데 다판 쟤는 뒤che 사람 어제 때마다 괜찮아.
It's on page 56. Immediately preceding condition. Within the three conditions, what it does is, as we talked earlier, the function of immediately preceding condition is the bringing up the information of clarity and cognition to the consciousness. So if you use an example, in the example it says, for example, eye consciousness, right? Looking at the object or form. Immediately preceding condition is a
Yeah.
prior moment of consciousness attending to a visible form. So if you're looking at the object and seeing and having understanding that this is the object, immediately prior to that moment of consciousness, there is a consciousness prior to that. So that immediately preceding condition becomes sort of connecting consciousness of the former moment. So which does the which brings the clarity and knowing of the object. So is, as the word says, the preceding, the prior moment of the consciousness.
다 간다긴 돔데오도 체네 라바는 다른 단다 송사선 다른 디도지 다른 셰바디긴 다데니 직 디보루들 셰바지게니 로 셰바지게 삼마제바 컵도에는 다트게 겐치겐데라 아니 테마타겐 다파기 파리네
스토라
칼로
다등이 로는 이게 싫어 다등이
이실라 이를 판나로 이게 온보도라 뭐 디토라 어디 차고
so 그
차고 ile cheva ta ti poru de la on shi de ma de de la kona digda
so you can understand this as a cognition which acts like a messenger, that is telling your mind this is this, this is that when you're looking or when you're seeing. So messaging to your mind that this is this object.
kosara
So
Example, where an example be a prior consciousness. Something is produced by a sense consciousness, then informing the mental consciousness.
너 저거 당하는 걸 그러셔. 테마타레도 배신다 뭐랑 연 들로 배신다 나시 다시 튀어버리시나 다 튀겨디 아니 튀어버디다 가서 이시를 연기하고 리시하고 된 뒤에는 다른 나시디 되라 테마타게 되려도
nashe de temata gen des nashe temata gen des la smare marin de mare
so Geshe saying not in that sense. 배샤로시가 say네 디 매스나 배지샤로시다로스 마타긴 배칸데샤오스
temata gen tanda ken sum su la di dura den di wach chi yustres
나는 비유대 슈군이에 된 유잡시 갈라고 그러죠. 대결은
de miken ta gen temata gen
대마타기는 다 일을 집에 시방아마 주고 달래.
자기라 tanda digi
다음 배 다나 하시네.
따라 da lele tema taken la da ila che sheba ngama tarin jos ko tanda tiwa di kartare dil
그러기 자퇴스나 자퇴바디 아니
da tiwa tara ani tema taken chat
자퇴스는 아니 슈고라 이게 왕벽이다 이시기 자퇴스는 하고 그러와. 하고 그 전부 다 이시 되라 아니 자퇴바디 대마타긴 차그려 저외라도.
된데다 치는데 다 간다 그냥 테마타 지단에 테마타 zana 테마타 아제디 잡아 디치데 하고도 켄라디 잡아 디치데 하고도 테마타 알란즈 람상 디바 자마체바 지라 코고레 켄라디 잡아 디게니 규도 다 컵도 직 무티니 유 제겐도 오질라 덴데질라 코알렌토나 디기도
저 남용지
온덴데지
깨지마라 그래 디기다.
어디네 도체라나 디 어디라나 다 디다 튕기나 다 소소 양 켈레나 다 제바치나 디
In the book, it's on page 56, because you were saying, the example, the way you used, for example, the immediately preceding condition for this, when related with the sound, its immediately preceding condition is a prior moment of consciousness attending to a sound. Okay, so in that sense, immediately preceding, you're saying you can understand this as, like a quickness of the moment, like that. You have that moment prior to this, sound consciousness, and there is that consciousness, and that consciousness is the continuation from its prior consciousness in order to make sound heard, to be heard. So there's a continuation of the consciousness, and immediately preceding is the moment just before, the recognition of the sound or attending to a sound. Does that make sense?
단다 디 가서 단다 셰바 다 일라 집에 셰바 nga마당 치마니가 아니 다직 잠 제라기 바도 어디 셰고라 디 테마타 켄데 어디 페드 자 윤센데 어디 인사 일라 집에 셰바 nga마 쪽 셰바 nga마 다디 포루디 라니 잠마체니 다 무티니 디 체데 디 차네 자인가
So here, sense faculty, immediately preceding condition is a prior moment of consciousness attending to a sound. So in a way, she was saying it was posited as a connector consciousness. It connects in the prior moment of consciousness, maybe at the stage of not knowing the sound and then so knowing the sound. So there's immediately preceding moment of consciousness that makes hearing sound heard, so.
And sense consciousness would be the mediator between that particular phenomena and mental consciousness.
이기 왕보다 다 지금의 유
Messenger.
투과정에로 들어와로다.
아
그 투과정에로 올라오래.
어디데 저바도 올라 디나라 주두더라 근데 그 차도도 괜데 그거잖아 다고 디기 데마타킨데 디데 투가다 타겐 투가 디다 라베르미도 또 베투가 저건데 고치다네 코나 이 경보 코란지야 젤리지로 딜레데 베디 디체 첨버도 저거나 도도
So you're saying similar to that, but not in absolute sense.
네 미스기 다하게 지단에 이들라 이기 투모마이 바제도 삼발라 코기 첼리기 이기 양 초사말라디 캬고로
Because when you're bringing up the mental consciousness, it has its own function and its own kind of
사말라디 체고라
nature and work. It does a lot of things. So
양 저번에 덴데체네 계제 체도 좀봐 양치 야마 계제 체도 좀봐 덴데간라 저번에 제나 디고 소소사 삼조근라 때네 양디 지게 파조 중다 띠마 덴데 계제 셰요라 나탄다 덴데체네 피체 디기 데 베데리들 라야레미도
So, but you're saying, but you can kind of, withstand your point and you can further argue on that and bring the reason why what you are saying is valid and it should be correct.
So I guess you want to give an example of something that is non-consciousness.
Sheba Mahimba
that
Pesha.
can produce consciousness.
Sheba Mahimba Pesha na Kasha Urlodo. Tangi Shebe na Shebarang Shebegi, Gula Shebarang Gorelaro. The Sheba Mahimba Jigi Pekarsha Urlodo.
셰바 마인바다 셰 지단에 질 ngobolane ngo보이나 쳔바 숨나 디두라 아니 수 셰바 데민도제 숨나라다 ngo보 탐제 디나라 디두라 다 지단에 독도치네 셰바에나 다 셰바 마인바다 주단 두제 데민도제 데주 셰바 마인바레 디 단다 니데스 다 지단에 가론 다 간사데스 샤선 데민도제 군도 두고
Generally, everything is classified into three category. Every meaning, every phenomena, every object in Buddhist sense. The first one is form, and the second is form, or the actual word would be form, maybe matter. The second is consciousness, and third is non-compositional. Non-compositional factor, or so everything included within these three classifications. And for example, a person concept comes under the third non-compositional phenomena, which is neither consciousness, no form.
지단에 그런 건 간사다메 라이저라 간사다메 라이 예나 니 질 간사다메 제 텔레나 요바다메 바니 요발라이나 다직 ngofo다 takwa ngofo라이나 숨 단다디 숨 takwa라이나 다 남바탐제 takwa다 레가오 takwa라네 데게 용 언데서 지다 지천에 다 내고에도 샤고고에도
실 강사 당매는 그실
간다 다음에는 니요라.
니 요바도 매바다.
요바다 메바.
음.
요바델라이나 아니
다보던 거 보다.
다바다 ngobo.
음.
아니 ngobol라이나 아니 숨
다다 숨라디.
어디 숨들이. 온디니.
매 단다 숨는 말아 안 수학 셔바 되면 되질래 돼.
음.
말아 어디.
주시바 되면 두지 숨래.
이제 안 돼.
어.
Again, in general, saying the ways of classifications. If you use a particular example of selflessness, a person can be categorized into something that something that exists, something that doesn't exist in existence, non-existence. For the existence, it can further categorize into permanent and phenomena or object. Then again, for the permanent, there's further classifications. And for the object or phenomena, then there's a three that we said earlier: form, consciousness, and compositional factors or condition.
온데.
뭐만 빼지 잘 오시겠어. 가다 시바 멤버.
시바 마인 바페.
음.
시바 마인 바페 가르잖아 디기도다. 가르자.
이게 시바를 시바 끼리라로 와. 다 시바 마인베 지 빼샤네니 딜레게 끼바데 가르샤리로듯이.
알레레 시바 마데 딜레 시바 마인 발 가리케서 가리기나.
가리네라고.
다 신도도 오지자서나 디기도 구슈도 오지. 구슈 신동도. 구슈 신동도 구슈 중 데리도 오지.
So, there can be plenty of examples for the non-consciousness. And simple example would be seed of apple producing apple. So consciousness, object producing non-conscious object.
네, 대마인바 상말랑 오보이나 따직
Seed of an apple.
체중다 라직 타오다 라바 마인바마도 오보 탐젤라 따직 초진의 삼라다와이나 규단 깬 여바래 다가직 따직 nga마nga마다 치마치마드네 데데시 샤샤게 되나 따 조모도 단다디 락바도 다 데데시 지단에 파 먼저 ngaranzo 파마포 디조 규단 규디레 따시바 딜라네 양심바자 주르사 따라단 디디사.
So generally, again, when we use the object or phenomena in general sense, every object phenomena has or must have its own cause and factor. So the cause and factor depends on how you posit it. In some cases, the timing or momentary. The previous moment would be the cause of the future moment. So in that sense, cause and there's always a cause and effect relationship.
So in the case of the seed and the apple, that would be form producing form.
Yeah, non-conscious.
네레레 디타르 된소다. 네레.
Yeah.
So, kind of a big question.
Mm-hmm.
Seem to be in the air.
저 전부 인사.
Dude. Yeah, no.
Um,
Yeah, man.
So, in the scientific community,
Mhm.
it has been a topic of discussion, debate for a very, very long time.
Yes.
The emergence of consciousness,
Mhm.
whether it can only arise from a previous moment of consciousness, or if it can emerge, without having that. And people who are sort of on the side of consciousness can emerge, talk about this. They use the word emergence,
Mhm.
and they say there are examples of things emerging from things that are not that thing.
Not conscious. Okay.
So, for example, you can combine hydrogen and oxygen to get water, and functionally, water is wet.
Mm-hmm.
So wetness emerges, by this combination of other things, and the sort of the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum.
The sum of the parts gestalt.
Yeah.
Or, and they describe emergence as when things combine and then become compositional,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Along with that emerge new properties.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can take lumps of chemicals that are not alive, and when they're combined in a certain way, a living thing emerges.
Mhm.
So they give examples like this.
Okay.
You know, functional things can emerge from things that are not that thing.
Okay.
And then they use the same logic to say, well, we can say consciousness can emerge from things that are not consciousness.
근데 당시에 되고 나시리대.
Yeah.
As I was saying, your assertion is same as the ancient non-Buddhist school called Sankhya. They say the same thing.
Yeah.
장제비 되어가지고 가서 창도는 유라시에 내고 통해줘라. 근데 제대로 세례배 나올로. 세례배 나올랜디 저바치 뭐 쉬우시스. 더 남시디 남바시버디 중단디. 가지기 남바시버디 중에도 뇌를 남바시버디 뇌네 무티니 중디고레스. 가지기 걸어 뇌를 남바시버디 고마레스. 남시 마엠바지네게 남시 중고레스. 다고난 디페샤서 지금 추다오시나. 추디 차와라 추디 나올 제니요로. 더 제니요로 하르지도 옥진로. 디니니가 추마레스. 디니냐부 dom스는 추차고로. 근데 당한 신기에니 남바샤바디기 타딘데기 잘라 요레스. 제니 dom스는 제 손바지식 만다지 차양고. 디나시 남바샤바디게 제 가시 dom스는 남바샤바 중쇼로 인지미지 시작한다 10에 규고 오면 더 올라고 그랬다. 10에 규가 만든 거만 연구하셔.
다 시비 다 크게 된다 도도 서 티와데 시비 기준다 시비 아마 용국민 도스들 빌라고라.
So your question was Kishla was saying, what you're asking is that for consciousness, to exist or to produce, it doesn't need a prior moment of consciousness. That's what you're saying.
That means that dilangege di sheba kumayin batendisi yongudu se tanda kena shuwa dina marangi di chira di kala songchik kelen asa dende mido de tanda ngazuki tuigyundu tanda yani chik tawa tanda di ki sik di tanda namshi mayin pe namshi di yo mare tarang kelen gore di mayin pa ngarang layan loza tanda di misi samlo kortan eske mido di la yang chik dende ta yonga la kabu dojin kere nge chana 다이나 따치다는 제제디네 데데다 따란 디데 파기 gel라버나지 카레나 심바 용초고르 데디 단당한저 셰바제데 점바 토마메 바네 따치치치 균네 치 데로와다 따디다 치다니 단다 지전에 단당한 동아저 단다디 고데 죽차르고도 거기 빼셔야 돼 단당한저 셰바라고 차르고도 제가 데데지가 나 연구도
So Geshe was saying that he doesn't have anything kind of new to say other than what was said in the text, that so we have a quote from Valid Cognition, right? It can also be proved because what is not consciousness is not a substantial cause of consciousness. So also on page 61. So for the cause of the consciousness, especially the substantial cause, must be consciousness. So here Geshe was saying that what you are using an example, illustration, that is matter, non-conscious. In non-conscious kind of realm, that can happen, combining two, three is totally different. But in the realm of consciousness, it's totally different. So, because in the realm of consciousness, for the consciousness to produce consciousness, it has to have its prior moment of consciousness. And non-matter cannot. That was he was saying that was, but it was nothing new or nothing kind of additional what was said in the text.
어디 야구도 지단에 단다 세리기 촌에 따르다오다 단다디 개왕아실라 소바다 지단에 남부슌다 다 로종 제거르디 딜라디 냠도에네 딘데 제거하데 당한서 세리바기 원에 직 뭐여 강요바디 대알라 탈람단 딘데 망보시 디 제거라 디기다 펜도 직 나줘다 세리니 냠도 쪼가다 균센도오다 딘데 차고라 다 디나네 직 어디 골라다 직 뒤견도네 직 나줘라 냠도 디 제야나 야구도 손데네
So you're saying, it was generally helpful to this kind of, approach because in scientific understanding and research, they are always trying to kind of find the reality, and and whatever reality that they find, presenting it to the, or bringing to the discussion to Buddhists, it's very helpful in understanding. And so,
No, really. So that chidane pento wore nga itande chigya di chitizo bai la chik pento gudu.
So it's generally helpful, but specifically for Geshe, it's helpful to have this kind of knowledge and understanding from the scientific point of view. Renee, your question?
So would you say that the current like scientific materialists have a lot in common with Samkhya materialists?
그냥 당신별로 디요르벨로도 세리보다 tumbu요르엘로도 다들 당연히 당신별로
당신부터 천지되는데 가시.
So Geshe said he don't know, and maybe
chidane.
yeah, I brought that up. So that was. So in the Sankhya system, there's a two kind of stream. One is the atheist, and one is the believer in creator. So the atheist one, they use the example, for example, just like they use an example of alcohol and its result of being alcoholic, intoxicant. So when you drink alcohol, you totally become a different person. So there's no compatibility between the cause and the effect. That is not needed, like what Buddhists claim. So the result produce something, the cause produce something that's totally different. So that and of course, their presentation of cause and effect and many major kind of concept is very different from Buddhism, and they are more like a materialistic, like a scientific.
단데 세리기 롭션데 단데 공발라 차네 점으로 무지 칼로 나징이 단데 버도 다 페처 다 달로 페처 책이 있어 달로 책에는 직 로니 슈트가 다 버도 있는 직 세리 냠도 롭션 체네 직 로니 슈트가 거기에서 페처 어찌다네 단다 대상 공발라네 ჩვენ 돈베 로투삼 투라이네 직 세리 라이네 롭션 로투라 창고다 로숨데 자산 소소소소라 장 아니 로숨데 냠 글루큐텔라 로숨 로투.
So you were saying for the monastic institution, it's been now 25 years, after His Holiness kind of introduction of science learning in monastic institutions, and monks, they have to learn for 6 years the science, 3 years in their own monastery, and then 3 years in a big Kiluk, examination. So they have to learn science along with the Buddhism.
언데네 도장
Geshe science, Geshe 세리 장면.
nga tseri chayada chidane nga tserira nga tseri chayada ngemane sena da chayada nga gyureta tanda di I kilu gyureta dizo tangre dizo dingene di chere chidane nga lopta lato di zamane chigyora ta tuigyento sakar tang dizo tang ta dizo changare di shivu ting zambo chaya chay kawara mazi ina gyureta tangne lakir yorta emorigi.
So how Geshe did he study science then back in monastery? He said he did, he did, and he gave exam as well about astrology and some other science. And however, he doesn't know much detail about science, but he has a degree from Emory University.
Hannah did very kindly send me the list of all the pages that we'll be covering over
So don't get
the
today.
next few weeks.
Mm.
And posted them to the calendar descriptions on our website. So if you want to prepare for the class ahead, you can just click on the event on our calendar on our website, and it should tell you the pages that we're going to cover during this class. However, if any of you want me to email you the list that Tenzin sent me, just let me know, and I'm happy to do it.
어디를 다 어디든 사랑이 주사라 디sem바데 디기도 당 간사게 디는 sem바당샤게 sem바디 링델라이네 직게 다랑 직 소야기 탑시당 다딜라이네 직 본본도 단다 직 예중당 다 딘디 디요에는 토야기 딘디 시요에는 디조타가네 미세기 디 디조디 링라이네 차로지 지단에 딩게니 도서와지
Yes.
이런 손다 직 딩게니 로요에네 텐소다 딘딜라 펜토이 그레스.
So, Geshe was saying the topic that we divided through the weekend classes, he will do his best to kind of, explain that topic in a summarized way. And if needed, kind of bringing quotes from classic Indian text. And so from your side, it would be helpful, to kind of read prior to the class. And shouldn't be that hard because, you already had this studied earlier as well. No, this is
chancho simcho rimbo che make banam genjuro che kewa nyamba meba kone kondo pewar sho yokare rave kowe shinkande pendang dewa malu juwe jire sewa tenzin kyazo ye chabe side bardo denjuro je Jaba bawe chidar kemba na kundo sambo te yang te jen te te da kunje jeso dalo kewa dida tamche rabdu ngo iti zum shebe yawa tamche ge ngo khanla chodo nga ba taki kewe tsawa di kun jang sambo choji rabdu ngo war ye in English.
page 40.
May the desires small in the land circled by snow, so happiness benefit in the person. Can you also please just as the bodies have come usually in on the shades, and so on to the house of true. So not to these to follow in the steps. As all the processes of the past, present, future, education, also spread. So now I do the dedicate this source of my merit to all things. Thank you.
Thank you.